Living Classroom. And today we're talking politics 101 with Dr. George Amity. And Dr. Amity, greetings and welcome. How you been?
Greetings. Good to be here.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you
Happy
as
New
well.
Year to you, too.
Yeah,
Made it to 2026.
Oh, 2026.
That's a blessing.
Looking forward to a whole new year, some good
yeah.
activities. You have some good things planned this year?
Oh, yeah. A lot of travel.
Oh, yes.
A lot of involvement in things. And so I'm...
You made any resolutions?
Yeah, I kind of resolved that I was going to put more emphasis on my health because I had some challenges in 2025. So I'm trying to get off on the right start with that.
Oh, yes, indeed. Taking care of yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Always important.
Absolutely.
And today we're going to talk about a number of things that's on the front burner from Latin America in particular, with Venezuela, Colombia was taking place there, and also in terms of Greenland, the U.S. Congress, and we talk about some local and state politics as well with the ascent of the new mayor, Helena Moreno, and the local elections that's taking place as well.
Absolutely.
The Senate
Absolutely.
and the Louisiana State Senate and Louisiana House of Representatives. Because our time is very, very short, and this time will go by very quickly if we're not careful, as it always does. But let's talk about this front burner. Because as we speak, we already know that it is everything is taking place as we speak. But wow. President Trump, Venezuela, this oil crisis, sending troops in, extracting a president of a country, bringing that president to the United States, New York City, putting that president in charge, although America says that is an illegitimate president. There's so many entanglements in terms of what's taking place there. Let's begin to see what I want to get your perception of what's taking place here, and how do you see it? Yes, sir.
Well, one of the things that when I kept going over all the things that happened, the thing that kept coming to mind was the Iraq War and how the days after the invasion and the perceived victory of the war, George W. Bush was flying signs that said mission accomplished, that he was naive to think that what he had done on behalf of the United States was the end of his objectives. But as you well know, it was the beginning of a civil war, chaos, and the killing of our troops in Iraq. So I began to say we have not learned anything from our history of invading sovereign countries. And so my concern is what will be the implications of this invasion, not, in spite of the fact of using our criminal justice system to conduct international politics and war as an excuse for which I consider a war act when you invade the sovereignty of another country, but using stretching the laws, the laws of our country, ignoring international laws. But I believe it has set into motion the beginning of global confusion and global chaos.
Well, looking at this, you mentioned the War Act. You mentioned the war, but then the War Powers Act and War Powers Resolution would tend to come into play. But Congress had the ability to bring in the War Powers Resolution. But the problem with that is that you only have the Democrats are the ones who would bring it into play, but there are not enough numbers to bring it into play because they're a minority. So it looks as though whether this is a war act or not becomes irrelevant unless you have the votes to put that into the proper construct. What do you say?
Well, once
Yes,
again,
sir.
in international and global politics. The reason why there's international organizations, international law, uh, and diplomacy is because we learn from all the wars we've been in that those instruments are more favorable approaches to disagreements than military options. And so I think that I'm not saying that the Congress is going to, especially being controlled by the party of the president, is going to go in and condemn and go in and change things. But what I'm saying is the process has begun where we begin to see the cost of doing those kind of things in terms of the global chaos, in terms of domestic problems. So, once again, one of the things that President Trump has been successful in is taking the issues of ICE, the issues of the Epstein files, and taking all of the other criticism leading to that would lead to him possibly losing the party losing the House. That he has created a chain of events that we have yet to see.
And let me say this: Latin America is one of my areas of expertise. In fact, I did a master's degree in Latin American studies over at Tulane, and I was actually the first back to receive a degree there in Latin American studies in the '70s. And the thing about Latin America, and I think that all of us need to recognize and understand that when you look at politics within the hemisphere, is that there is a different culture when it comes to the Latin American experience as opposed to the Middle East or as opposed to Sub-Sahara or any other parts of the world. And so when you talk to Latin Americans, they truly understand what is taking place, and they understand that it's not only about politics, but it's also about culture as well. And you have to understand the culture, the dynamics of the people in the Western Hemisphere. My dilemma is that is what, and I know you're familiar with this, the adage that General Powell said that if you break it, you own it. And now that you go into Latin America and you bring these countries down, and you take away the governing apparatus, then you own it. And just as you said, mission accomplished is premature.
Absolutely.
Absolutely premature. But then what about the neighboring countries? You look at Colombia. Colombia is finding itself, preparing itself for war. You look at Cuba, and you want to isolate Cuba. And I visited Cuba twice in the last year, and it's a country that's done more with less than I would think any country in this hemisphere. But especially when you go to Havana and surrounding areas, what has taken place, I think, in my view, is that, and we see them going back to a different form, a different structure in America, a different form, and throw back to the 19th century. But the response to that is you're creating and I do want you to respond to this. You're creating the the adage of America again as an imperialist country, and it's supporting that adage. Though you may want to change governments or change rulership, but you see American imperialism at its best. And so as a result, the countervailing act is that you actually lose what you hope to attain. Well, yes, sir.
Well, let me just say
Talk
this.
to us.
You know, uh, I understand
Yeah.
the uniqueness of the hemisphere
Yeah.
and the cultures within within the
Right,
Western Hemisphere. But once again, the implications is much larger than just in the Western Hemisphere, because we already are broaching the conversation about military action in Greenland.
Yeah.
We have already sent a message to Russia and China that it's okay for them to do what they did in Kuwait, and it's okay to do what they did with China purports to want to do in Taiwan. We also is sending a message, according to Trump, that may involve Iran, that may involve the African continent. And to me, that is a result of breaking a stable set of international institutions through the United Nations, through NATO, through alliances that now seem to be threatened. So I see the implications of what he's done. Even when we had the Cold War, that kind of, you still had some degree of fighting through surrogates and that sort of thing. But now, with the breaking of international law, and the reason why I say it's so important, because the thing about international and global politics is that there is no central authority. That results oftentimes are accomplished through bullying by larger countries. However, it's diplomacy and cultural exchanges and the institutions that have been set up that have kept it's somewhat stable. And I just see that the action that he's taken is has dismantled, for all practical purposes, the influence of international entities, and has opened the door to a new realignment where Russia, China, and the United States are back into the 19th century, as you said, and deciding what parts of the world they want.
Exactly, and again, that's part of the geopolitics that this president plays, and the sort of geopolitics that he plays is one that is alien to individuals, to those in the Western world, which have seen this over the past 80 years since the end of World War II. Is one which is rooted in diplomacy, but his geopolitics is not rooted. And I say his, I mean this administration geopolitics is not rooted in diplomacy. It's rooted in what Mao Zedong used to say: power comes from the barrel of a gun.
Absolutely.
So it's rooted in the gun.
And by the same token, his domestic politics, to me, it's an extension of the kind of ignoring of the domestic laws. We saw that an invasion of the capital. We see that in sending troops to various cities. We see that in terms of just really using military might and interpreting law, even domestic laws, in a way that has more to do with power, has more to do with enforcement of physical acts of violence.
And before we move on and talk more about state and local politics, I'd like for you to just give me your general assessment and the response that Congress should be making. They've gone back into session this week, and so Congress and the reaction to this president's international proclamations and activities, as well as what he's doing domestically. So, what's the role that you see Congress at this point? Yes, sir.
Given the history of this country with respect to covert actions in all over the world, we've always had that and continue to have that. But in this sense, what he's doing is more overt.
Yeah.
And so, but Congress, most seem to agree that Maduro was detrimental to the interests of this country and that he needed to be removed. But it still raises questions about whether we respect a nation's sovereignty. It still raises questions about, in the international arena, whether we actually favor democracy. Because when he got rid of Maduro, he did not appoint the person that was democratically elected by the people who hadn't come to power because of Maduro. Maduro.
Well,
The other person actually won the election, but he appointed the person who was Maduro's vice president. So once again, I see this president and the Congress is going to be on this slippery slope, and we have to wait and see what's going to happen. But my prediction is, that it will impact the House elections, and then eventually the Congress will have to use its power to check the power of the president.
Well, this president said, he was online, and I saw the video of it earlier this morning, where President Trump has stated, he stated that, hey, and he stated this to the members of the Democratic caucus, the Republican caucus. He said that you have to win this election, because if he does not win this election, they don't win in the midterms we're speaking about, then he will be impeached, and so he's placed this out there because they say it is, and the whole program in terms of what they want to do will not be accomplished. So he stated it very directly and very specifically that winning the midterms is rooted in not necessarily his foreign policy, not necessarily these other activities. It's rooted in protecting the interests of this president, saying that he would be impeached.
Well,
Yes,
that's
sir.
different
Yes.
because he always contended that he was the reason why people won elections, and the very actions that he is taking,
Yeah.
both domestically and internationally, is the primary reason why the seats at the midterm are in jeopardy for his party. So, I don't think.
But that's a statement he gave, and so
Yeah.
so his statement is about the survival, his personal survival.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's smart for him to say that, but it's not going to. His urging them about they understand the importance of this election, and if they continue to go in the path in terms of supporting his pedophile activities, supporting his chaos with respect to impacting economies and everything else, and not addressing the real issues that American people want, they inevitably are going to lose.
The forum, and again, before we move to state and local politics and discussions, it looks as though that he's putting this on the front burner to protect his personal interests, and that we recognize that we're moving closer and closer and closer to the period where he becomes a lame duck.
Absolutely.
And you and I, we all know this, that the number one, we learned this in our first year in school, is that the number one criteria of every political being is to get reelected.
Absolutely.
So
Well-
these individuals, yes, sir.
Yeah, well, he's not going to be up for reelection, but the effectiveness of his existing reign,
These congressmen and all these others, it's
they
about their
will
reelection.
be in jeopardy, and that's why he's saying that.
Yes.
But it remains to be seen.
Now, right, and so let's look at, in the time that we do have, let's talk about some state and local politics and see what's taking place here. Boy, we're moving now into a period where we have a number of, we see new mayor preparing to go into effect, and when this program airs later on, it's going to air. We're live now, but as we move forward, she's going to be, will be president. Will be the mayor. And what is your outlook for Mayor Moreno? What do you see on the horizon in terms of dilemmas and what can be accomplished early in the game? Because we already know about the budget crisis. Yes, sir.
Yeah, the budget crisis, but it reminds me of when we began to get the transition from predominantly white mayors of predominantly cities of color and move towards having black mayors, and those black mayors oftentimes gain those seats, but financially they were in a quagmire. So, she's not coming in with the best of circumstances, and we continue to hear that the budget deficit is. I wouldn't be surprised if next week they said, well, no, it's not 200, it's 300 million. It seems as though the council existing, the one coming in, and doesn't have a clue about the real nature of this crisis, and that goes back to what we've talked about on this show over and over again. When you don't have a reasonable relationship between the mayor, outgoing mayor and the incoming mayor, and that you've placed politics before the people's agenda, you get this results.
But was he not on the city council and understood what was taking place, had a front row seat? So it is my thought and thinking that you would know about the impending budget crisis that's taking place.
Well,
and it would be part of the campaign and part of the discussion. And at a minimum, all the individuals who cover this, the so-called professionals in the community who cover it, that they would have highlighted it in advance.
well,
Yes,
there are
sir.
two ways to look at that.
Yeah,
One
give me the ways. Yes,
one
sir.
is maybe they did know, because this was not the primary discussion that was going on during the election season. You know, I mean, we have a tendency sometimes to sweep things out of the rug. Secondly, there was some circumstances. Some can be blamed on the outgoing mayor. Some can be blamed on circumstances about federal money, circumstances regarding unanticipated expenses. But I mean, if you say that there was not enough money to cover the overtime, and you were on the council that passed the budget, I mean, something's
Yes.
not adding up. And then, of course, the lack of communication between. But there were, some of the mayor's people were saying that it wasn't as bad, and then others who said it was bad. But they seem to the budget process seems to be a need to revamp, and it needs to be done in such a way that the public and the council should know what's going on. But one of the advantages she does have is she's going to have a council that's supportive of her efforts, and she has apparently favor to some extent with the state actors with the actors at the state level. So I think she has that advantage, but it's a bad situation, and this idea that nobody's going to get laid off, we're not going to raise any taxes, we're going to cut, that's out the window, because I mean, every time we hear about this, the situation is worse, and the blaming Biden model is not going to work here. At some point, LaToya Cantrell is not going to be mayor of the city of New Orleans, and we're going to be looking to Mayor Helena Moreno. So we have to see what's going to go on.
It's almost like the proverbial when the dog chases the car and it finally catches up with the car, what it's going to do with it.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
How long do you think her honeymoon will last?
Well, I think it's going to be a while.
Or if there will be a honeymoon.
At least I think with the council, they've all been reelected, or so I think for this first year it should last. Of course,
you give it a good year honeymoon.
Well,
oh wow, that's very good. That's generous.
Well, I'm a little generous, but on the other hand, once again, that depends on how responsive the mayor is to the council.
Well, this is what I suggest. We haven't had the first flood yet.
I got you.
And so I think it's going to last as long until we get the first spring flood.
Yeah.
When the first spring flood comes, everything changes.
Well, I mean,
Yes.
After all, we don't have LaToya Cantrell. We have these people who knew everything that she was doing wrong, and they had the answers. So we just have to wait and see how good they are.
The special elections that's taking place. What stands out for you with these special elections? Because we have some second generation and third generation people running for office, and it's a very curious thing that's taking place in the city of New Orleans.
Well, we have people that have run for office before.
Uh-huh.
We have people who have done things in the community, which I think is another factor that's going to be. And then we have people who are associated with certain families,
Yeah.
and I think all those things will come into play. We have Ed Murray's son. We have
Right.
Sidney Bartholomew's son. We have Eugene
But it's
Green's son.
yes,
So
yes.
the question is
Familiar names.
familiar names.
Familiar surnames, yes.
Question is, now Eugene just got elected. Ed hasn't
Re-elected, yes.
reelected, and Ed has not been in there a while, and Sidney even goes back further. So the question is, what level of tolerance does the New Orleans community have for apparent heirs? That means is it
Well, what sort of background do you think the electorate is looking for for state elected officials? When I say background, there was a period you wanted a civil rights background. Then there's a period where individuals wanted folks who knew business. I mean, what sort of background,
Well,
sort
I
of
think
mix that you think
I
is
think it's the
important?
mixture of the three
Yes,
things
sir.
that I said. One is for the people who've run before, their knowledge and their experience in terms of their ability to govern. I think for those who are second generation, how their first generation parents are perceived, and I think thirdly is what, and I don't know this for each candidate, what kind of track record they have in the community. Are they perceived the people in those districts to just be popping up right now to run, or they've seen them in action and know. And of course, name recognition is
Does
important.
political pedigree have value? Because I think to some extent political pedigree does have some value. I just know what the skill would be here in the city of New Orleans, but it does have some value. But I don't know the final impact of it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think it has some value,
Mhm.
but I think it's in combination
Okay,
with
okay.
those other things that I wouldn't point one specific
Yeah.
thing. Though all of those factors that I've identified will come into play.
As a
But I
professional,
think more so than political.
as a political scientist, professional, what do you see?
Well, I see that they're open seats. So we're talking about people who have never served, and whoever is able to present themselves, and who not just in this election. And I keep emphasizing the fact, what have they done prior to now? And I think that's going to come into play. So, but the pedigree does have some influence, but I don't think it's not a shoe in. I mean, we have Senator Johnson who's running, former Senator Johnson. What is the perception of people about the job he did in District E
Yeah.
and in the Senate? I mean, that's important.
We
So
didn't
it's a
real- yeah.
combination of those.
We didn't
things.
realize that your former chancellor, but Senator Joe Bowie, now chancellor of Southern University of New Orleans, he held down the fort.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
he was. But the legislature, and we have about a minute left. The legislature historically has been a place where individuals go and cut their teeth before they go back in, before they go return home and go into local politics. And so it tends to be a place where they send young people or folks who have not been involved in the political
Absolutely,
arena.
absolutely.
And in the remaining minute that we do have, for the next 30 days,
Well,
what do you see? Yes, sir.
The thing that has intrigued me is the election of this very different mayor in New York.
oh,
Because
yes,
I
yes,
think
yes,
it's a point,
yes.
not just in terms of whether he's going to be successful, but he's educating the public about some very important issues like democratic socialism, what's democracy, what's socialism, what is capitalism. And I think we need to observe that to see if he's successful or not, because that will have implications for other races. Because now, because of the frustration of the public, people like AOC
Mhm.
and people like
Oh,
Bernie
yes,
Sanders are very
that-
popular.
So the left wing of the Democratic Party will have some impact, and we're going to see how it's going to be
Absolutely.
how it's going to be manifested.
Absolutely.
See, and so I see that as well. And so I tell our producer that it's that time for us. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
and that
And then, of
that's
course,
what we
the
have.
Supreme Court would be the other thing, and their decision on tariffs and the decision on congressional.
Oh
oversight.
yes, the Supreme Court,
And
and
we
also
didn't talk about the Congress.
the Congress, and they
We
haven't they did not discuss the maps
Right,
yet, and
exactly.
so that may be that's an indicator possibly
Absolutely.
for the Cleo Field seat. And again, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
And you can that's for Professor George Amity, and you can follow me on all platforms of social media. It's under Dr. Gary Clark, and as always, it's been a pleasure.